Merry Christmas morning to you, Mr. Dylan. It's your very first Christmas. And I want to read you a story called My First Christmas Tree, and it's by Hamlin Garland. And I'm going to show you a picture first, okay? Okay, are you ready for the story? When I was 10 years old, we moved to Mitchell County, an Iowa prairie land, and there we prospered in such wise that our stockings always held toys of some sort, and even my mother's stocking occasionally sagged with a simple piece of jewelry or a new comb or brush. But the thought of a family tree remained the luxury of millionaire city dwellers. Indeed, it was not until my 15th or 16th year that our Sunday school rose to the extravagance of a tree. And it is of this wondrous festival that I write. The land about us was only partly cultivated at this time, and our district schoolhouse, a bare little box, was set bleakly on the prairie. But the Burr Oak schoolhouse was not only larger, but it stood beneath great oaks as well, and possessed the charm of a forest background through which a stream ran silently. It was our chief social center. There, of a Sunday, a regular preacher held divine service with Sunday school as a sequence. At night, usually on Friday nights, the young people met in lyceums, as we called them, to debate great questions or to speak pieces and read essays. And here it was that I saw my first Christmas tree. I walked to that tree across 4 miles of moonlit snow. Snow? No, it was a floor of diamonds, a magical world so beautiful that my heart still aches with the wonder of it and with the regret that it has all gone with the keen eyes and the bounding pulses of the boy. Our home at this time was a small frame house on the prairie, almost directly west of the Burr Oak Grove, and as it was too cold to take the horses out, my brother and I, with our tall boots, our visored caps, and our long woolen mufflers, started forth afoot, defiant of the cold. We left the gate on the trot, bound for a sight of the glittering unknown. The snow was deep, and we moved side by side in the grooves made by the hoofs of the horses, setting our feet on the shine left by the broad shoes of the wood sleighs whose going had smoothed the way for us. Our breaths rose like smoke in the still air. It must have been 10 below zero, but that did not trouble us in those days, and at last we came in sight of the lights, in sound of the singing, the laughter, the bells of the feast. It was a poor little building without tower or bell, and its low walls had but 3 windows on a side. And yet it seemed very imposing to me that night as I crossed the threshold and faced the strange people who packed it to the door. I say strange people, for though I had seen most of them many times, they all seemed somehow alien to me. I lost my place. Wow. Excuse me, I lost my place and I can't find it again. Okay, let's see. I was a regular attendant at Sunday school and did not expect a present. Therefore, I stood against the wall and gazed with open-eyed marvel at the shining pine which stood where the pulpit was wont to be. I was made to feel the more embarrassed by reason of the remark of a boy who accused me of having forgotten to comb my hair. This was not true, but the cap I wore always matted my hair down over my brow, and then, when I lifted it off, invariably disarranged it completely. Nevertheless, I felt guilty and hot. I don't suppose my hair was artistically barbered that night. I rather guess Mother had used the shears, and I can believe that I looked the half-wild colt that I was, but there was no call for that youth to direct attention to my unavoidable shagginess. I don't think the tree had many candles, and I don't remember that it glittered with golden apples. But it was loaded with presents, and the girls, coming and going, clothed in bright garments, made me forget my own looks. I think they made me forget to remove my overcoat, which was a sodden thing of poor cut and worse quality. I think I must have stood agape for nearly 2 hours, listening to the songs, noting every motion of Adoniram Birch and Asa Walker as they directed the ceremonies and prepared the way for the great event, that is to say, for the coming of Santa Claus himself. A furious jingling of bells, a loud voice outside, the lifting of a window, the nearer clash of bells, and the dear old saint appeared in the person of Stephen Bartle, clothed in a red robe, a belt of sleigh bells, and a long white beard. The children cried out, "Oh!" The girls tittered and shrieked with excitement, and the boys laughed and clapped their hands. Then Sandy, who he was called, made a little speech about being glad to see us all, but as he had many other places to visit, and as there were a great many presents to distribute, he guessed he'd have to ask some of the many pretty girls to help him. So he called upon Betty Birch and Hattie Knapp, and I, for one, admired his taste, for they were the most popular maids of the school. Here's some more pictures for you. They came up blushing and a little bewildered by the blaze of publicity thus blown upon them, but their native dignity asserted itself, and the distribution of the presents began. I have a notion now that the fruit upon the tree was mostly bags of popcorn and cornucopias of candy, but as my brother and I stood there that night and saw everybody, even the rowdiest boy, getting something, we felt aggrieved and rebellious. We forgot that we had come from afar. We only knew that we were being left out. But suddenly, in the midst of our gloom, my brother's name was called, and a lovely girl with a gentle smile handed him a bag of popcorn. My heart glowed with gratitude. Somebody had thought of us. And when she came to me, saying sweetly, "Here's something for you," I had not words to thank her. This happened nearly 40 years ago, but her smile, her outstretched hand, her sympathetic eyes are vividly before me as I write. She was sorry for the shock-headed boy who stood against the wall, and her pity made the little box of candy a casket of pearls. The fact that I swallowed the jewels on the road home does not take from the reality of my adoration. At last I had to take my final glimpse of that wondrous tree, and I well remember the walk home. My brother and I traveled in wordless companionship. The moon was sinking toward the west, and the snow crust gleamed with a million fairy lamps. The sentinel watchdogs barked from lonely farmhouses, and the wolves answered from the ridges. Now and then sleighs passed with lovers sitting 2 and 2, and the bells on their horses had the remote music of romance to us whose boots drummed like clogs of wood upon the icy road.